I want to kind of go back to the night of your accident. What do you remember about that night?
Well, not much. I That night I was hanging out with my friend at the time. After a shift where I worked at, I went to Steak and Shake, and we were on Mound Road getting gas for her, and that's when I started to go home, and everything after that is just a blur.
What do you remember about that night?
I remember he's late, so I'm on my phone tracking him, seeing where he is, and I notice he's at DMH. And obviously he's not answering his phone. So my wife and I went up to DMH. They told us he was in a bad accident, he was in surgery, come back in a few hours. We came back in a few hours. We were told he'd been sent to St. John's. At that point, we still didn't know what happened to him or how severe his injuries were. On the way to Springfield to St. John's, a friend got me a hold of the police report. So then we had an inkling of the accident, inkling of his injuries. We got to St. John's, they told us he's in surgery. They put us in the special room where, they talk to you when something very serious is going on, and they didn't have high hopes at the time.
And what was your reaction to hearing that, just showing up to the hospital and then them saying he's in emergency surgery? What was going through your head at the time?
It's you cannot put it into words. The potential loss of a child, just not knowing even what his injuries were. When I finally found out his injuries, I couldn't believe he was still alive.
Talking about the injuries, what kind of injuries did you sustain? How many surgeries? Do you have more to go? Kind of talk about what's been going on since.
He broke here.
Well, what he was about to say, I broke everything below my jaw. In the most literal way I can describe it. I put it in short, I broke more ribs than didn't break. Lungs were punctured. My whole left arm, every single bone inside of it was shattered completely. Both collarbones. My hips were splayed open. My jaw was broken in 3 spots. My knees were shattered. And my sphincter ruptured.
He had internal injuries too. They had to resect his colon immediately. He tore every ligament in his knee except for the ACLs. He dislocated both wrists so bad that they needed to be plated. He did a number on himself. He just wanted to get out of finals.
I wasn't really ready for finals.
How many, and I think, Patrick, you were texting me about it, but just, can you even count how many surgeries you've had to have? Do you still have more that you have to do?
I do. I have a couple more coming up this year, or hopefully this year. I've had any number between 20 and 30 surgeries so far.
And, what has recovery been like for you? What are some major adjustments you've had to make in your life?
I can't bend my knees. It's probably the worst one.
So much worse than that.
A little.
All your athletics is taken away from you. He was a massive Highland gamer, possibly set to set a couple of world records. All that is gone. His ability to walk, to bend, to do most things for himself, but gone.
The Highland Games are a Celtic throwing event, heavy man stuff.
And you can't do that anymore, can you?
No, I cannot.
And I know you mentioned that this house has no stairs. Did you have to get this house after the accident, or did you already live here?
We had it for Seán. Fortunately, we'd had it. We were going to use it as a rental, and we decided to move Seán in for school.
Gotcha. Okay. And, you know, Seán, it seems like your life was just completely changed in a moment's time. How do you keep going? What motivates you?
Well, for what childhood I had left, it was taken away. So, I mean, even just before the accident, I was starting to entirely better myself again, working out every day, actually starting to somewhat look at pay attention to my grades, and, well, now
Business.
I had my own, I started a detailing business, I worked, but all that was taken away, so now I want to work to get it back stronger, better than I was before.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Karen Beam, who's, you know, responsible for this, she's going through the court process right now. Have you heard from her or her family since?
The only time she had any contact with us was to ridicule Seán and me on the internet when she got out of jail. It lasted a night before it was stopped. But other than that, no.
You know, my question is, what are your thoughts towards that person who did this to you? Do you have resentment? Is there any room for forgiveness there? You know, where's your headspace at?
Well, yeah, you could say I hate her. She stripped everything away from me and didn't look back. She didn't look back at all. She looked forward for her own benefit and nothing else. The things she said about me online, and even just moments after the accident, she laughed and she ran around only caring for herself. There's no moral standard within her. There isn't any forgiveness for someone who didn't even do a single thing.
Yeah. Patrick, what about you? Same thing.
Well, going back to that, she ran around saying, "Help me, I don't have a license, I gotta get out of here." When the cops did get there, she started laughing with them, told them she'd beaten a DUI, she was going to beat this one. She was driving revoked. More importantly, she was driving uninsured, so she put all his medical treatment on us. We've seen no remorse. The county is still in discovery on her case. It's going to take a long time.
And that actually segues to my next question is, what are you looking for from the state's attorney's office? Or is there new legislation that combats driving under the influence? You know, what are things that you want to see happen to get justice for your son?
Those laws are already in place. You can't drink and drive. You can't drive under the influence of medicine or narcotics. Anything that affects your judgment, you shouldn't be driving. You certainly shouldn't be driving when you're revoked. And it's not like this was the first time she'd driven revoked. If you look at her record, has driven 3 or 4 times before, speeding, etc., uninsured, revoked, and all those charges had been dismissed. So there seemed to be no threat, no worries for her. If there's no penalty, why not do all these things? Seán, unfortunately, was the end stop, and he's the one that has to suffer.
How has the community supported you guys during this time?
They've been great. I wish I could. Even people that I hadn't ever talked to are praying for me and speaking out for me online. I really just want to thank everyone. I want everyone to know that I thank them for praying for me and being there for me. In the hospital, and even now, they still pray for me. The community that's behind us is a very, very wholesome one.
And Going back to, have you been in communication with the state's attorney's office? What are you hoping to see comes out of that for justice for him?
I don't think there can ever be justice. She has 2 aggravated felonies, 4 total, but 2 of them are aggravated with a maximum of 12 years in jail. Frankly, I'd like to see her do all 12 years, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. I mean, I'm a bit old school. An eye for an eye would be ideal for me, but that's not realistic and it's not going to happen.
Patrick, this is more for you. What has it been like seeing your child go through this?
It all but broke me. It's the most horrific thing. You're asking yourself, why couldn't it have been me? Why can't I take his pain? Why can't I suffer for him? But you can't. To be honest, I'm astonished at Seán's strength, his ability to look at every day and say, I'm going to do a little better today. I'm going to do something new. And his stubbornness is unbelievable. He's supposed to be in a wheelchair. He's not supposed to be able to walk. And yet he's up and walking around. He did an oil change on my daughter's car yesterday.
Oh, that's amazing.
He only has one working arm. They still smell like oil.
Patrick, with all of this being said, you said he's supposed to be in a wheelchair. How proud are you of him and just facing life every day after this?
To say I'm proud doesn't do it justice. He's miraculous. He's the kind of kid that annoys the crap out of me, that beats me up because he's a bully, elder abuse. We have a very good relationship, and I have him today. I still have him. When all the odds said I shouldn't have him, I've got my boy. I'm happy with that.
Seán, what has it been like for you? Many, you've heard your father say that they were shocked that you came out of this alive and you're lucky to be alive. How has this been for you, and do you kind of use that as an opportunity to continue to move forward?
Well, now I've had a handicap now, so it's been difficult, to say the least, but I've never mentally let it get to me, because I know that if I ever had, I'd still be in the hospital now if I let the mental aspect take control of my life.
Seán, there may be other teens out there who get in an accident or something happens to where they can't do what they did before. What is your advice for those other teens to move forward?
If you give up, then it's the same thing as just dying from the accident itself. You need to keep your head up, because if you let your head go down, you will lose yourself and you won't come back from it. You will be stuck where you're at, and you need to never let it get to your head.
And this question can be for both of you, but next steps for you guys, and maybe, Seán, goals that you have for yourself to continue to kind of work towards getting back to where you once were.
Well, me, I full on plan on working out very intensely once I'm actually able to, like I said, work out, because as of now, I have heterotopic ossification, which, excluding the medical terminology of it, there's bone growing in my ligaments inside of my knee, and my elbow, and my jaw. So that screws up a lot of things for it. But
he needs a lot of surgery to remove the bone, to resect all the bone in his ligaments. It can't be done until the heterotopic ossification is stopped, because of the bone damage to the jaw, he had to have both hinges removed and have prosthetics put in. His left arm was completely and utterly rebuilt. He also, avulsed C5 and C6, the nerves in his neck, tore him off the spine completely. Thankfully, due to nerve transfers, he's starting to be able to use that arm again, which 20 years ago you'd never get it back. We're living in a modern age where a lot of things are possible that weren't. Seán is strong. He will live with his limitations and surpass them every day. He knows that he can still have a great life despite his limitations. You just adapt and move forward.
I believe I asked you all everything I wanted to ask you. Anything either of you want to add that we haven't talked about?
I miss my bike.
You silly.
That's very fair.
It was my bike. It used to be my bike.
Oh my god.
Until he got his license, and then every time I'd go for it, it was gone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to say is Seán's life was saved by his helmet. He had a brand new helmet on. He always wore his helmet. To anybody riding, please, please wear the helmet. Now, I'm guilty myself of not doing it. I'm wearing it only at night when the bugs are out. But after seeing Seán, wear the damn helmet. Well, you're too ugly to look at me. Turn away.
I do have.
And we obviously are going to get his story out there. You know, what are you hoping, what kind of awareness do you hope his story brings for other families, and maybe hopes that this doesn't happen to another family?
Don't drink and drive. Don't do drugs and drive. Anything like that. It doesn't take much. And it's the one person who was actually obeying the laws that night that got hurt. If Seán had been speeding that night, he probably wouldn't have gotten hurt.
Or hurt worse.
He was actually being a good boy, for once. But do what he did. Go through all the right courses to get your license.
They don't have the courses anymore for minors.
Really?
Yeah. Richland doesn't do it anymore. I was the last to get it.
One of the questions the cops asked me after the action is, we know he had a full motorcycle license. How? Because he went through all the training and he went through all the courses. He got it a couple of weeks after his 16th birthday. He got his driver's license on his birthday, and then a couple of weeks later got his motorcycle license. It can all be done.
I think, and I'm going to make sure now that I have you two here, but I think I have everything. Just any last minute, anything else you guys want to say?
To add on to what Seán said, about the community, even our neighbours here kept the yards up while we were away in Chicago at the hospitals. The neighbours, the community have been so outstanding. Help, prayers, even donations. It has been wonderful to see how well we're supported in that regard.
And you guys, you mentioned you had to go up to Chicago for one of the hospitals up there?
We went to St. John's for 3 months, and then Chicago for another 3.
Yeah, there were 2 hospitals in Chicago I went to. After St. John's took me out of the hospital, I went to Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is stated to be the best rehabilitation center in the world. 3 days in, I went to the ER because I had an infection in the hardware inside of my knee. So I had to go to Lurie's Children's Hospital.
How long were you in the hospitals before you were able to come home?
My accident was May 17th, and I was in the hospital until October 12th.
Oh my goodness. And I think you mentioned you guys have a doctor's appointment today in Springfield. How often do you guys have to go to the doctor?
We do, I forgot about it. I'm glad you reminded us.
It's a reminder.
We have appointments every week. We have multiple appointments every single week. Some of the long distance ones can be done with video. A lot of them are done in person. What are you doing? He's going to beat me with this in a second.
No, you don't know how to hold the mic.
He might die yet.
I appreciate both of you taking the time and you sharing your story, Seán. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to watch more videos from Fox, Illinois.